The Rock and Roll Coffee Show is brought to you by Writers and Rockers Coffee Company, keeping the music and memories alive with some damn good coffee. Visit them at writersandrockerscoffee.com. And Retroactive, located at Broadway at the Beach in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. 70s, 80s, 90s retro. ShopRetroactive.com.
It's the Rock and Roll and Coffee Show. Yeah, we do.
Welcome to the Rock and Roll Coffee Show. I am Joe Sibilia. Thanks for tuning in. If you are listening to the audio version of this podcast, please head on over to our YouTube channel. Let's find us over there. Search the Rock and Roll Coffee Show and you will find us. And if you're a first-time visitor here on YouTube, please make sure to hit subscribe. That will really help the channel out. My next guest is Ace Von Johnson. Ace is the guitar player in the band LA Guns. He was previously in Faster Pussycat. And he cut his teeth in punk rock in bands such as U.S. Bombs and Murphy's Law. He played a little bit in Unwritten Law. And I talked to Ace about all of that. And LA Guns has a new album coming out called Black Diamonds. We do discuss that. We discuss horror movies. We discuss his love for pit bulls, where that came from. And I did ask Ace why he left Faster Pussycat, because I've been curious. If you've listened to my conversation with Chad Stewart, the drummer of Faster Pussycat, I asked him the same question, but he told me to ask Ace. So I did. All that and more. So I appreciate you tuning in. I hope you enjoy this conversation with Ace as much as I did. Thanks for tuning in. So you got a lot of vinyl. You've been a vinyl collector for a long time?
Yeah, I inadvertently started collecting vinyl as a middle schooler. I was going to say teenager, but I think that is before whatever. So around maybe like 12, I think I just liked the format, and I used to see them at my grandmother's house, and the Disney records and whatnot. Yeah. And my sister, as a product of the 80s, if you will, my sister constantly had records laying around. Although we never lived together until much later. When I would go visit her, I would see them. I'd be like, oh, that's cool. It's like a really big CD. And, you can actually see the artwork. And so I think I bought my first record on vinyl in like 7th grade, some of which I still have. I'm a big Misfits, Samhain, Danzig fan. And so I bought a copy of Danzig Lucifuge, the second record, Danzig 2, for 99 cents. When I was in 7th or 8th grade, and it's like a gold stamp foil promo copy, and now lists for like $400. So it's like a nice 99-cent investment.
Yeah. I brought out my vinyl not too long ago. I had them at my dad's, and when he passed away, I brought them out here. And then I've been collecting since. That was a few years ago. But it's a fun
hobby. Yeah, it's a fun hobby. I think it's like baseball cards for adults.
Yeah. Do you buy new vinyl, or you just stick to old vinyl?
I think it depends what it is. 60-40, predominantly new stuff. There's some things that obviously I like to have a first pressing or some crazy thing. I went down a huge David Bowie rabbit hole several times in my life, but a couple times in the last few years, I was like, I really need to fill these gaps, where I didn't have certain albums. And so, or in some instances where I was like, well, I have Diamond Dogs, but it's older than me, literally, and has been through more shit than I have. So I'm going to reinvest in a nice copy that doesn't skip every 45 seconds or whatever.
Right. Yeah, I buy some. I tried to buy Checkered Past on vinyl, and you know what happened? What happened was I bought it, I ordered it, paid for it. It never showed up, and then I got an email saying they couldn't provide it. So they refunded my money.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Something with supply, I guess.
Yeah. They sold out really fast on vinyl. And then I was getting like third-party sellers. I mean, I was given a small allotment of them myself, but I mean, 3 copies is like, okay, so there's one for my sister and then 2 for me.
Yeah.
So any other copies I wanted to distribute amongst friends or loved ones, I had to purchase myself. And so it seemed pretty quick that I was buying them on eBay and Amazon, and each time it was going up, more and more. And then now I think they're circulating again. I think if you're looking for one, I think you can get one on Amazon again.
Oh yeah, on Amazon.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Check it out. So listen, so you now you got started in punk, correct?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Punk
That's
scene.
my raison d'etre or whatever.
So how did you find punk?
Um, I think punk found me, man. I don't know. I think it was an amalgamation of having an older sister who lived through punk rock in the 80s as we think of it, in the yesteryears and whatnot. And also being sort of a product of the pre-grunge, post-glam landscape that would have been like circa 92, 93, when Metallica was sort of the biggest band on earth. So in 1993, I was 10, and through Metallica and through living in LA, KROQ or K-Rock was playing Bad Religion. They were playing Rancid. They were playing Green Day. They were playing the Dead Kennedys and stuff like that on some, the Ramones. I remember being 9 years old and asking my sister, I was like, do you know this song about sedation? And she's like, oh, come with me. It's like, I want to be sedation. So yeah, come with me. And so just all these things. And Metallica was my favorite band when I was 10 or 11. And I remember, I was like, you wouldn't necessarily do it now. You'd go find a Spotify playlist or whatever. But at the time I was like, oh, they're wearing these shirts from presumably other bands. I should check those bands out. And so it was like GBH and the Misfits and more Misfits. And I remember having this like light bulb go off where I was like, so Cliff Burton has a skull tattooed on him. And then James is wearing this shirt that has the same skull with this logo. And then Kirk's wearing a shirt with a different design with the same logo. It was like Misfits. I was like, skulls, spooky looking. I'm gonna check that out. And being horror movie fan as a little kid, I was like, so wait, I get punk rock and horror movies. And then off I went. And then I kept going and going. And I think there was middle school, I had a friend's older brother who handed me a bootleg cassette copy of the first Dead Kennedys record. And that was it. And that was inadvertently how I got into punk rock and then into music intimately. And what gave me the sort of desire to pick up a guitar.
Wow. Okay. Do you remember your first guitar?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how to answer that properly. My mom was sort of a poser hippie in the 60s. And so ergo, she obviously had like the nylon string, like dollar store acoustic in the closet that like, I don't think she ever played. She just had. And so at probably, 8 years old, I was just picking it up and sort of like finger picking on it like you would a bass. Didn't understand the concept of a pick yet. And so that would, I guess, technically be my first. Okay. And then I showed interest after about 3 years. And my mother and my stepfather bought me some no-name brand acoustic. And we're like, we'll get you some lessons. And I was like, I don't want any lessons. I don't want anything. And my, who's now my stepfather and his son, who's much older, he showed me House of the Rising Sun, and Eric Burden. And that was it. That was my only lesson ever. And I just started trying to learn Ramones and Social Distortion and Misfits. And I remember vividly learning Stray Cats or the best of my ability, and being young, like 10, 11, 12, sixth grade, young, like a little kid. And then I saved up my allowance for an electric guitar when I was in 8th grade. You asked me a simple question and I've turned it into a 20-minute TED talk. But my favorite part of the story was I saved up my allowance for however many months to buy this pawn shop. I don't remember what it was, but it was an Explorer shaped, some relic from the 80s. Yeah. And I remember wanting it because I wanted to look like James Hetfield. I was like, that's like the James Hetfield guitar. and I bought it and I brought it home. And I don't know how old you are in 8th grade, 12, 13. And I remember my mother was like, you're going to join a band. You're going to start doing drugs. You're going to overdose and die. You take that right back right now.
Yeah.
And I got grounded and forced to take the guitar back. And then my stepdad, who was like this voice of reason, was like, he saved up his allowance. It's his own money. Like, he did it himself. He wants to learn to play guitar. Let him play the guitar, you know? And so I was allowed to keep it once she realized that in order to play the electric guitar, I also needed an amplifier.
Oh, no.
Then I wasn't allowed to have an amplifier. So I had, for years, probably 2 years, I just had an electric guitar with no amp. And then at some point, maybe a year later, I learned that this sort of boombox karaoke tape deck I had a 1/4-inch input. And I'm looking at the guitar going, that's a 1/4-inch input. That's a 1/4-inch input. If I plug this guitar into here and turn the reverb and the gain and the treble up all the way, it sounds like an amp.
Yeah.
So, and off I went.
I bet mom was happy.
She didn't know about it for quite a while because I kept it hidden in the closet. And then I would only play it plugged in when she was like out at, like, you know, the grocery store or whatever.
Yeah. But the good news is you have already been playing for probably about 2 years, right? So you couldn't have been that bad.
Yeah, I was okay for a kid with no
So
lessons.
You didn't have to torture her at the beginning.
There is that pre YouTube, and you know, you can pull up an app on your phone that'll show you how to play any song in 30 seconds or whatever. Before all that, obviously. So, you know, but I wasn't aspiring. I wasn't like, I'm going to be a musician. I'm going to make, you know, I'm going to have a wall of records, you know, by sheer force and will from, you know, playing this instrument. It was just like, how can I make the same sound as the Dead Kennedys and the Misfits and also sort of piss off my mom, you know?
Yeah.
It's pretty simple.
Yeah. Speaking of YouTube and stuff, you ever check out your own songs, see if they're transcribed correctly?
No. I that sounds too self-indulgent for me. I
would be curious.
I don't think I think it's actually the other way around. I think being in so many bands in my career where I've had to learn other people's parts repeatedly, and not just, you know, one guitar player's parts, but like even you could say LA Guns, where it's like, well, this one song, it was something that Tracy recorded, and then on the next album it was McCrips, and then there's another album I'm learning a song from and it's somebody else. So I'm sort of emulating other people's parts frequently, or at least to the best of my ability. And so sometimes I'll go, it's probably been years. I think I only did it once since joining Guns, but definitely in my Pussycat years. But I go on there and be like, how do I learn the solo from Nonstop to Nowhere? Because I don't really want to take the time to learn it myself. I just want some kid in like Thailand to show me how to play it. You can play it like verbatim, you know?
Yeah. That's funny. So what was, now you were in Murphy's Law and Written Law. You're in LA
All the
Guns.
laws.
You like the law bands.
Yeah.
And you also did some outlaw country, didn't you?
Yeah, technically. Yeah, I did.
Another law.
I did. Yeah. I didn't think about it like that. I did some stuff with a guy named Charlie Overby, who I forgot what Rolling Stone referred to him as. He's got some favorite quote about himself. It was like, you know, Hollywood's bastard son or something like that. Rolling Stone. Charlie took me under his wing when I was about 24, and I was playing in a bunch of punk rock bands. And Charlie had a band in the 80s called Big Bang Babies. He was a singer under the alias Kit Ashley. Their biggest claim to fame was that their guitar player was a young Kerry Kelly, who's gone on to play in Slash's Snake Pit and Alice Cooper and Night Ranger and all these bigger artists, and LA Guns. And he was like, you're playing all these punk bands. You look kind of rock and roll. You're tattooed. You know, what's up? And I was really desperately trying to get out of playing in punk rock bands because by that point it was sort of, I was already waist deep and had a career, was a budding career. And so I joined his band, and we toured with David Allan Coe, and we did a bunch of dates with Lemmy, God rest his soul, with Headcat. His band was Slim Jim Phantom, and my buddy Danny B. Harvey. And that was, again, outlaw country, sort of Social Distortion meets
Mhm.
Springsteen meets Gaslight Anthem, outlaw country, Americana kind of thing.
Mm.
And it was a kind of an eye-opening experience as a young man. And then I met all these sort of LA guys. I met the guys in Pussycat. I met Tracy Guns. I met the guys from Danzig, and all these bands that I was aware of, or a fan of, or both. And it led to a lot of professional relationships. Some, let's say, 15 years later, and that's what kind of led me to Pussycat, and then obviously to LA Guns and a myriad of other things. But yeah, a lot of Laws, a lot of punk rock.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
yeah.
So Faster Pussycat, you joined them in when was that? Early 2000s?
No. So the first time I came in, informally was '09. And it didn't work out for a couple of different moving pieces.
Oh no.
And then I came in early in 2010 and became a member full time at the end of the year. And then I stayed with the band until 2019. So depending how you look at it, about 9.5 years. I usually just say 10 until someone goes, it wasn't actually 10. It was 9 years and 6 months and 4 days. I read
Yeah.
it on Wikipedia. So I go, whatever, man. And if it looks like I keep futzing with my hair, I just cut all of it off yesterday. So this is the second time I've ever seen I had really, my hair was getting long, what's left of it.
How
And so
long was it?
I'm talking to you going like, oh, okay, I got my
Yeah.
Wolverine thing going on here.
Yeah.
And
How long was it? Because it doesn't look
I
short.
probably cut about 4 inches off of it. I mean, it was longer. It
Yeah.
was always, I don't enjoy having longer hair, but I think it's aesthetically sort of expected of me. I think if I showed up and shaved my head, it would be sort of unbecoming. So, especially given the bands I play in. But
Yeah.
so I just was tired of looking at how rats nest, and so I cut some of it off. So I
Right.
apologize for the if I'm
You're
like,
good. It looks good. It looks good. Sometimes you need to make a change.
yeah. I mean, we're it's one of those things where we're kind of wrapped for the rest of the year. We've got the Kiss cruise at the end of the month, and then maybe 5 other shows. It's like, no one's gonna notice if my hair's shorter for the next 3 months. By the time we go back to work in March or April, it'll be long
Yeah.
again. Who cares?
Yeah. Before you know it, you're gonna have hair like this. I used to have long hair.
Yeah. I mean,
Once
look,
I
if
cut
I
it, though, it was like I don't want long hair anymore.
it's I have really thick wavy hair, so if I don't, that's why it looks wet. If I don't load it with pomade and run a flat iron through it, I have like I sent a picture to LA Guns once to the band thread, and they're like, you look like Tommy Mark Bolan, and it's all like ringlets, and I was like, oh, that's not a bad thing, I'll take that, but it's not really what I'm going for. So
No, it's
if
good.
I could have short hair like yours every day, I think I would.
So okay, so back to Faster Pussycat. And, I had Chad on the show.
I
And I
saw.
was talking to him about you. I don't know if you.
Oh
got
God, I didn't see that. What did Chad have to say?
No, well, I asked him why you left Faster Pussycat,
Mhm.
and he said I would have to ask you. So I'm
Fair.
asking you, why did you leave Faster Pussycat?
I was double booked at a certain point. I did double duty with LA Guns and Faster Pussycat for roughly a year.
Mhm.
And I didn't go into LA Guns to join the band. I'll give you the long answer, as I'm good
Yeah.
at. They had been courting me. I think that's kind of well or known, established now. And I was like, well, I don't know. And Pussycat was coming off a long tour, as they frequently do. And I was going through a really sort of ugly breakup and having some hard time with that and a few other things. And I said, I really don't want to sit in my apartment in Hollywood and just dwell on what's going on until the next Pussycat thing, which was months away.
Sure.
And they called me again, I think for the 4th or possibly 5th time. And I was like, sure. I was like, and I knew that they were sort of in a transitional period, if you will. There were some guys that had come after Michael Grant and before me that were basically just filling in, and including Adam Hamilton, who still works with us to this day. He's basically our 5th Beatle, our 6th Beatle. And Adam is an angel. I love that guy to death.
Yeah,
and so
like you
talented.
said, he's pretty much a member of the band almost.
Yeah, I mean, he's credited on the upcoming record like he's in the band. I mean, he played drums on the record.
Yeah.
So but and what, such a sweet guy, so talented and multifaceted, engineer, producer, guitar player, bass player, drummer. I've never heard him sing personally, but I'm sure he has a voice like an angel. But anyway, I digress. So I was doing both. to kind of busy myself, I went out. I had a really good time. I'd known Johnny Martin since I was a puppy. I've known Tracy at the time for probably about 10 years, and that was 4.5 years ago, or whatever it was, 4 years ago plus. And I knew Phil for about 10 years. And Shane, our drummer at the time, I knew casually. And I was like, oh, this is a good group of people. This is a good time. And I just never left. And so I stayed. And I knew at that point, eventually I was going to have to pick one. And I did some bobbing and weaving, and I don't think I had anyone substitute for me. I think I was trying my best to be like, here's my availability. Can you work around that? And most people will say, oh, sure. But what they mean is absolutely not. And at least in my experiences.
Right.
And so LA Guns and Pussycat were overlapping on some dates over the summer of 2019. And I had to call Tammy probably around April. And I said, I'm not going to be able to do X amount of said tour. How would you like me to proceed? And after he was done being upset by that, he and I put our heads together, and I said, he obviously gave me the reins as far as choosing my substitute, which I inadvertently knew was going to probably most likely be a successor, whatever, someone taking my spot. And I said, these are the two people I kind of had in mind, one of which was Sam Bam Colton, good old SBK, and who, I don't know, I would call him my protege, not now, but at the time, being a young guy, and I had taken him under my wing a little bit much earlier on than that. And it's nothing about playing wise at all, but infinitely more talented on guitar, on his instrument, at his craft than I'll ever be. I'm a punk rock guy, he's a shred,
he's amazing,
he's a real guitar player. And and rightfully so, he went to school for it. I mean, I still learning, and I'm twice his age, right? But and I brought Sam over, and they hit it off really well. And Sam is just like Adam, a total angel, very sweet kid, very smart, very driven, very talented. And I said, off you go. And they did the tour, and I did my tour with Guns. And I think I came back and did some shows, like a weekend of dates. And then the next thing was sort of like shit or get off the pot. Like, if you're going to not come back and do what we have, Pussycat, what we have available next, then we're going to get Sam, and he'll stay Sam. And I was like, hey man, it's your guy, I just work here, so you do whatever you want to do.
Well, I think it worked out for both you guys. I mean,
it did, yeah.
I mean, I told him, I just saw him not too long ago, a couple months they were here, and we hung out a little bit. And I mean, he's overloaded. He does so much stuff. I don't know how
he's got a lot on his plate. Yeah.
He's a great
and the Dorothy gig has really been great for him. I'm really happy that she brought him in. Her and I had been talking about that position for a while. I've been friends with Dorothy for ages. I don't even know how long. And I think between the two gigs, I think eventually he'll find himself in a similar position. He's already had to sub out with Pussycat several times. At one point, I think it was alluded to asking me to do it, but I was already unavailable my own self. So we'll see. I don't know. I can't obviously speak for him, but why I left Pussycat is I was double booked. And after 10 years, I felt like I had seen all I needed to see with the band. And at the time, unbeknownst to me, I didn't realize why Tammy wasn't releasing new music, but that's his story to tell more so than mine. But there was some reason that he had withheld from me. And so we had recorded song after song after song after song at Gilby's and at Fred Corey's and at his house, and for 10 years, and nothing ever came out. One song came out. And when LA Guns was like, hey, you want to join a band that puts out an album every 6 months? And I was like, I'd rather do that.
Yeah, I was going to say, they're more active. At least they were.
Oh, yeah. I mean, in 4 years and change with LA Guns, I just finished a second album. I'm on a live album. I'm on an EP. singles, music videos. I'm pictured on a third full length. I'm pictured on The Devil You Know. Obviously, it was recorded about a year before I joined, but you could count that if you wanted to in some regards. You pictured but not performed, or whatever you want to, however you want to word it. And then with Pussycat, ironically, finally something came out from them with me on it, and I wasn't even in the fucking band anymore.
Right. And that's Pirate Love, right?
Yeah. I'm unsure if any of my stuff is on New Orleans. I will say this. I recorded that song with Tammy at least twice. And I don't know if my bed tracks are in the version that's on there. But I definitely am all over Pirate Love. I think I basically was like, I grew up on Johnny Thunders. If you record this fucking cover without me, we're gonna have words. So that's how that. I'm kidding, of course, but it was one of those things.
Yeah. So you guys just got off a successful tour together.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, so I'm assuming you guys are in good terms and everything went well, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's a little like traveling with like an ex-wife, but it's like your ex-wife that you might have like a kid with and you're still cool. Yeah. You're like, oh, how are you? How's the cat? Okay, right on. Nice to see you. Good. Oh, right on. You know, I think it was leading up to it. It was more that vibe. And by like day 3, we were like, all right, it's time to get the Jack Daniels out. And what songs are we covering in the encore? You know? Yeah. So it quickly switched gears into like, you know, you can take the pirate off the ship, but you can't take the ship out of the pirate. I don't know. It was one of those things. Yeah. I mean, I think.
Go ahead.
I was say, I think so many people were like, is this going to be okay? Are you going to be okay? Had asked that preemptively before the tour for so long that I got out there before the tour started and was like, am I going to be okay? Is this going to be okay? Are we all going to be fine? Even though, I mean, I talked to Tammy at least leading up to the tour, I would say once every other week, you know, regularly. And Sam is like my child brother. Yeah. And so, I mean, I just sent him something via Amazon today, you know, it's like close people, and Danny I love, and Chad's Chad. And
I'll give you my address. You can send me.
What's that?
I'll give you my address. You can send me some.
Oh yeah. I'll send you a checkered past.
There you go. Finally get it.
There you go.
Well, that's awesome, man. I'm glad to hear, you know, I hate when I hear like conflict over things like that. And so I'm glad that worked out for you guys.
Yeah, me too. I don't think there was ever any conflict. I think there were some external factors of people trying to meddle and try to create a rift. I know someone had told Danny, the bass player for Faster Pussycat, that I was speaking ill of him before the tour. And I was like, I called him and I was like, dude, I fucking love you. I don't know why this person's getting involved, but they should leave their baggage to themselves and know that I love you and I'll see you in a week. And he was like, yeah, whatever. People are drunk and stupid. I was like, exactly. Yeah. So let's go have a good time. It was a blast. It was a blast.
So while you were on that tour, now this is my guess. I'm guessing you wrote this next album, it's Black Diamonds, right?
Yeah, Black Diamonds.
You wrote that while on the road? I mean, recorded it?
Yeah, we recorded a lot of it, some of it during the tour. I think Johnny Martin, our bass player, did most of his tracking on the road. Tracy had brought a little mobile recording sort of apparatus contraption. Yeah. And we all did some stuff from the road. But I think he did the bulk of his at home. And then Tracy. Phil, say again? Tracy, yeah. Okay. And then I did a lot of my stuff. I have one guitar solo on the record that I really love, and I did right in the seat in my office here, and he wanted me to redo it, and I was like, I love you, bro. I was like, that's the solo. I was like, I don't want to redo it. I was like, you can tweak it sonically, but I was like, it was 2 parts married in one, and minimal editing. I was like, if I try to do it again, it'll never be as good. Just let me be married to there's a term for it in the industry, I can't remember what it is, but like you get married to the concept of hearing this like a demo version, and then you're like, no, that's how the song goes. Like, no, there's a demo. It's now the producer's coming in or the singer's coming in, and stuff's changing. Stuff's going to change. And so it's like, I don't care what we change, just leave my solo alone. I like it how it is. Yeah. Don't upset me. I'm very fragile with my solo. Okay. So, but yeah, it was an easy record to turn around on. I think most of it was written before the tour.
Okay.
And normally, I will say this, normally we would jam at sound check and come up with, I know one or two of the riffs. I remember when he sent them to me, I was like, oh, I remember specifically one song. Don't ask me the title because I don't even know the titles of any of the songs, any of them. But I was like, the one in A minor. I recognized from playing at a sound check in Texas. So, we'll throw stuff around and someone will record it on a phone and then it'll turn into something or it won't. So, but we didn't get a lot of time to mess with stuff on this tour because we were sandwiched between the two bands on the package. So it was pretty minimal as far as like our ability to get on stage and just jam.
Okay. Yeah, I was just asking because it seems like Checkered Past just came out. That's why I was asking.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know when Black Diamonds will actually drop. I don't think there's a formal release date, at least
Okay.
that I'm aware of yet. I'm going to guess next year. But, because yeah, Checkered Past is only a year old.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and I saw this that it was done. I was like, what?
yeah,
When they do
I
it?
think if Tracy had his druthers, I think he could put out an album easily once a month.
Yeah.
I mean, I could play on an album every month easily. I don't know that I could personally write, craft, and say, oh, I'm the worst at going, oh, this song is finished. I'm the worst at that.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I have songs from 15 years ago where I'm like, well, I don't really like the chorus. So, but with him, he's like, here's the song, and here's another song, and here's another song, and here's four more songs, and here's this. And you want something that sounds like black metal? Here's this. You want Zeppelin? Here's this. He's just constantly creating and recording. And then he'll stash stuff aside for LA Guns or other projects. I mean, like you saw with Sunbomb,
Uh-huh.
and some other things he's maybe that haven't come to fruition yet or ever, where he just is creating all the time. I actually envy that. I wish I had that ability to just do A to Z on a song and put it aside, which I'm not good at, obviously.
Yeah. So do you find that a lot of your songs come from like accidents? Not accidents, but like you don't just sit down and say, "All right, I'm going to write this song." They just
No, I think the worst way for me to do that is I'm going to sit down and write a song. It
yeah,
never happens like that.
yeah,
I'm usually like feeling something, like I'm something on the negative spectrum, like I'm upset or I'm angry or I'm bored or something like that. And I'll pick up an instrument and I'll come up with something. Uh, I can't remember the last time I sat down and said, I'm going to write a song,
yeah,
at least in that context. I've done some stuff obviously outside of just LA Guns, but outside of traditional band stuff where, like I've written some stuff for like cues and background music where it's like, okay, I'm sitting down to write these pieces of music. That's a little different,
mm,
but at least in my mindset. But um, I usually sit down with the guitar and I'm noodling, and then oh, that sounds kind of
yeah,
cool. And then it goes to the phone, and then from the phone to the computer, and then it'll turn into something. And then, or 98% of the time it turns into nothing. So,
yeah. Do you do you write for film and TV?
uh, the easiest way to answer that is sometimes.
Sometimes.
I partnered with a buddy of mine who does write for TV and film professionally. At the beginning of the year, I had sent him some stuff and I said, hey, I'm coming up with these little cue things, these little pieces of music. What do you think? And he goes, his exact words, do you want a job? And so I partnered with his LLC and submitted some bunch of stuff for this massive library that's being churned out into the, you know, machine that is television and film.
Yeah.
And so some stuff's been picked to be placed. I actually
Awesome.
wrote a song for this is Shudder, the streaming service that's on in the background with the pumpkin.
Mm-hmm.
And I wrote a song specifically with their guy named John Brennan, who's their music supervisor for a show called The Last Drive-In with Joe Bob Briggs. It's like a horror host show where they pick a horror movie and intersplice as him doing commentary.
Mm.
And so I worked on that with him. And then I may or may not be doing another with the same thing for Shudder here soon. So yeah, and I mean, I've had songs I've written in film and television and stuff in the past.
Yeah.
Mostly it was a band that a song was in a TV show. Like I had a bunch of stuff on MTV ages ago with a project called Madcap. So technically, yes, although it's a little more arduous. It's not like I'm sitting here cranking out scores for films and TV shows all day long, although I would love to.
It seems difficult. I mean, I've never done it, but
Uh,
cool.
it can be. I have no clue what I'm doing. Just like in all facets in my life, I'm just sort of, you know, driving with
Yeah, I'm with
like
you.
that.
I know what you mean.
And I think a lot of it is more just applying yourself, like anything in life. I was like, well, I'm gonna see what I can come up with, and somebody's got to feed all 27 of these dogs and keep the lights on. So,
Yeah,
um, and there's other elements in my life besides just being the guy from whatever band
sure.
people are choosing to align me with. And so that's one of them. I would love to do more of it, and hopefully will.
How about the voiceover stuff? I know you're doing voiceover. You still doing that?
Yeah, I mean, again, these are simple questions with my ranting long answers. I haven't done any VO in probably 5 or 6 months
Hmm.
that I at least am aware of, that I can remember. I'm sure I've done something that was like so short and brief that I've already forgotten about it. I think my last formal job was the beginning of the year. It's sort of a passive thing for me. I would love to be just like the cues thing. Look at me, jack of all trades, master of none. But I would love to be doing more, but I find myself occupied with fostering a dog or going back on tour or whatever
Yeah.
the hell, or working frantically on cues or trying to finish a track for a Guns record or whatever. So I kind of put that on the back burner. I would love to do more. I have some stuff that features my voice on Netflix, which is always a great thing to reference because now is it such a household name.
Yeah.
People are like, oh, I can hear your voice on Netflix. I go, why, yes, you can, and ideally, if someone called me and said, hey, we want you to voice some cartoon characters on a animated series, but you got to stop being in a band, I would choose that. That's like been my dream for the last 10 years, is to do just animation. I've
So you
auditioned.
would stop being in the band?
I wouldn't quit the band, but I mean, if I could pick if
Yeah.
I could pick what I'm doing professionally, I would rather do voice work
Yeah.
at this
Of course.
juncture in my life. Obviously, I've been doing voiceover for 10 years and it's been in multiple bands. So it's not like no one's putting a gun to my head
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
forcing me to choose. But
Yeah.
ideally, if I had the ability to make where it was like 80-20, with 80 being my music career, 20%, I'm making this number up, but 20% being my voiceover. If I could
Mhm.
switch those roles, I would pursue that because I do enjoy doing voice stuff, especially anything that allows me to not just be the same droning baritone speaking voice that I hear in my head, my
Yeah.
inner monologue all day. The animation stuff is what I really aspire for, so, but nobody's really picking up on that for me yet. They just go, yeah, we want you to be if you could just have a bassy voice and just, okay, if you're looking for an accurate TS4, try an okay, or whatever it is, and I'm like, can I spice it up? Can I be like a bridge troll or like an angry
Yeah.
pirate with one leg? No.
Yeah. I think I heard on your reel you tried to sell me a chicken sandwich or something from Wendy's,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Wasn't that? Yeah, I actually thought that was a commercial playing before your reel,
No,
and then I realized, oh no, this is it.
that's my reel. My favorite is when people listen to the animation one and they go, which of the voices talking is you? I go, they're all me. Like, the people talking to each other are you? I go, they're all those voices are going on all up here
Yeah.
simultaneously. Trust me. Yeah, they're all me. And the commercials are all it's just me reading copy. It's not like if I was the voice guy for all those businesses like KFC and Acura, I'd my office would be much larger than this, and the record collection as
Yeah, it'd
well.
be a lot bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so when you go do into a voiceover gig, I guess I'll call it. I don't know what it's called, job,
Yeah.
gig, whatever.
A job. Yeah.
Say animation. Do they tell you what they want the voice to sound like, or I mean, how do you determine what you're gonna sound like?
Well, I mean, I've only really read for I was gonna say several, two animated things ever that weren't per my own uh creation. I did do I was shopping an animated series ages ago with Don Jameson from That Metal Show.
Okay. Mm.
So I was able to pick each character what their cadence was or whatever. I'm trying to think back. I read for something for 5 minutes. I had a really big agent in like straight up in Beverly Hills, this huge agency. And that sent me out for all these big things that I booked zero, nothing. And then immediately got dropped because I went back on tour and off I went. And that was the end of that. But I read for something that was to do with a video game, and I don't remember what it was, but it was like a like a ogre or a monster or something large like that. And so I just went in, and it had like, you know, some basic, like large, menacing, angry, like
Okay,
little
so they describe it.
cliff notes. Yeah, but it wasn't like, we're looking for someone that could sound exactly like Jeff Goldblum or whatever. It was like, we want to hear your version of the angry ogre. And so I was like, oh, okay, whatever it was. And I didn't get the job, and I was heartbroken. But the engineer, I remember, was like, man, that was great. He goes, if it was up to me, I'd hire you. And I left feeling like I had accomplished something. So I'll take it. Small victories, right?
There you go. Now, is that like playing guitar too? Do you have to practice your voices?
Yes, but also no. I mean, I'm not the poor dogs in my house. I talk at them so much that it's like I'm practicing voice all day.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, the only time you would ever practice, I would think, is when you are going in for a job or an audition and you get the copy. Then you would obviously rehearse
Sure.
what you're going to say. I wouldn't like going in blind, although I've done it. And in that instance, yeah, but it's not like I'm walking around speaking for the sake of practicing my voice.
Yeah.
Unless I had a job to prepare for.
That's
So.
awesome. Sorry for all the voiceover questions. It just
Oh no,
it fascinates me though how people can do that.
I admittedly am so, my resume's like 17 jobs, so it's pretty minimal. It's not like I'm this professional, voice actor. It's just something I've dabbled in. I think most of my repeat clients, at least, there was a lot of nepotism involved. Like you'd imagine, like people are like, hey man, I'm a fan of whatever band you're in this year. I heard you do voiceover. And I go, I do. And they go, what's your rate? And I go, it's this. And then they go, I've got this business and I'd like to do this. And then we go from there. So I've had a couple of people that I did business with for years, for various things. And then Netflix and some other things and some dub jobs and that kind of stuff. So, again, I feel like, I shouldn't be talking about an industry that I only have this tiny amount of insight into, but I do enjoy it. It's a nice creative outlet outside of just playing an instrument.
Yeah, that's awesome, man.
Thank you.
You're out in Tennessee right now, right? Didn't you move
I
out
am.
there?
Technically I'm in Nashville. Yeah.
One of
The
those
height of the,
guys that moved to
what's that?
Nashville. You're one of those guys that moved to Nashville.
I'm one of these guys. I at the height of the pandemic, I was paying an arm and a leg for my tiny little apartment in Hollywood. And when I say Hollywood, I don't mean North Hollywood or Studio City or Van Nuys. I mean right in the heart of Hollywood, a block north of Capitol Records at the top of Argyle and Franklin. And I started looking at moving, and I was like, well, if I'm going to move, I might as well move where I want. And I sure can't upgrade anywhere within 50 miles of LA financially. So if I move out of this place that's rent controlled, I'm going to be downgrading unless I move to, butt fuck nowhere. So I chose to move to actual butt fuck nowhere, except I've been coming here for 15 years for work. And I knew for less money, I could have, I'm in a 2-story house on a, acre of property. It's like for less than my shitty little 100-year-old apartment in Hollywood.
It's a no-brainer.
Yeah, no brainer. And I'm walking distance from 3 people that I've known for 10 years. And I could keep going and going and going on all the perks. And so I think, not to harp further, but my only regret is I wish I had moved sooner. But yeah, I'm in Tennessee now.
Yeah, a lot of people. I know Ricky moved out there a few years ago, right? Out to North Carolina.
Yeah, he's just outside of Charlotte. That was a small factor in why I moved, because arguably would say he's, you know, I'm not 11 anymore. So I'm like, we're best friends, but he's probably my closest friend.
Yeah, he said the
And
same thing to me.
yeah, I
But
mean, he's a big brother to me,
mhm.
and, and so, now he's an afternoon drive away rather than across the country,
Yeah.
and I have some family in Georgia that are about the same distance, about 300 miles from here. So they're an afternoon drive, and,
Hmm.
you get a lot more for your money, more bang for your buck out here. And,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I, and then was able to do more dog stuff as well. So a
Hmm.
lot of factors.
Yeah. A lot of people out there in Nashville know. I think for a while there, all my guests, every guest I had was from Nashville.
Yeah. It's I don't go out. I never leave the fucking house, but it's a happening place. I mean, there's
Yeah.
something going on 8 days a week here.
Yeah. Was it bittersweet for you to leave LA? Because you grew up there, right?
Yeah, born and raised.
Mm.
Uh, in hindsight, probably a little bit. I think at the time, I was just so eager to leave. I was so uh, I had just a horrible year, and the pandemic. I didn't know if I'd ever tour again. I didn't know if that was what was no, but
Right.
none of us did. It was
Right.
like June when I started looking into moving, and it was October when I got my house, and I was here by December. Obviously, I had to pack up and
Hmm.
drive cross country and everything, all these other factors. And so a little bit, but no, because ultimately, despite not living there, I've still been back in LA like once every 3 months, every 60 to 90 days for work since the beginning of last year.
Okay.
So, I'll be there. I'll be in LA in 2 weeks, a week from 2 weeks from tomorrow. So by the time I start missing it, I'm like, I'll be there in a
Yeah.
month. Who cares?
Yeah. Well, cool. Um, I also wanted to ask you about Neon Coven. You still doing that?
I don't know what the status of Neon Coven is.
Okay.
I know the four out of the five of us, excluding myself, got together, of course, in the middle of the tour while I was unavailable, and I think they might have written a song or three. I don't really know. I know everybody's kind of busy with their own respective work. I talk to my drummer Kyle probably once a week, and I talk to Jacob Bunton, who's sort of our man behind the curtain guy in the band. He basically produces and writes most of the music,
Mm-hmm.
and which he's a pretty well-known ghostwriter. So it's like
Sure.
his uh, his skill set is just cranking out amazing pieces of music. And I talk to him probably once every 2 weeks, and no one has said anything to me. No one's mentioned anything. They did a show about 6 months ago,
Mm.
and it was a 25-minute set, and I was like, guys, I'm not flying out there to play 5 songs. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So and it's an electronic rock band, so most of
Yeah.
it was on tape or tracks anyhow.
Oh, we
But
can't talk about that right now.
oh yeah, I know. Oh God, Eddie Trunk called me on Saturday, and
Oh
with a
no.
story I'll tell you not on the show,
Yeah.
but
Don't want to
somebody
start anything.
somebody was very angry with me, and then realized that they had the totally wrong person, and Eddie Trunk had to tell them that they're like, he doesn't live in Las Vegas, you're thinking of the wrong person. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
So funny now, but or what is it, laugh now cry later.
Right.
But yeah, yeah, so Neon Coven is still I mean, it was always set up to be a studio project
Mhm.
anyhow. I'm really proud of the Future Postponed record we did. I would put it in my top. I mean, I don't know how many albums I'm on or written or played on over the years, at least 30, but I would put it in my top 3 albums I'm most proud of that I've done. Um, I think it was the first record I contributed lyrics to since I was like 20.
Oh yeah.
So that was like kind of cool for me to
Mhm.
have my singer, this guy Anthony, who's really talented, and Jacob be like, do you have anything for this? And I was like, I could. I
Yeah.
said, I've got this poem. And they're like, yeah, that's lyrics. Those are poems. It's just to a song. And I was like, oh, that's how that works? All right. So yeah.
Yeah. No, it's good
Yeah, that's
stuff
that.
though. It's good stuff.
Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. And then the last, but let's talk about the pit bulls a little bit because everybody
Sure.
knows you're a big pit bull advocate, right?
Yeah. I hope
How
so.
did that start?
I don't know. I uh I'm going to look at the clock, and then I'm going to make a mental note of how long this TED talk goes on for. I think it stems from feeling like, okay, always being a dog guy growing up, and then having my mother sort of instill certain like values, whatever you want to call, in you, uh, you know, um, put out what you get what you put, you get what you give,
Mm,
and is that a Tesla song?
something like
And
that.
sorry. And and I did 2 years, at least 18 months of volunteer work. And I never talked about this until about 2 years ago. It just never came up. It wasn't something I talked about. And then now I feel like it's not, I don't like to use it as like a chip, but like it's come up a few times where I'm like, you know, I volunteered in a shelter with my mother for 2 years. And it was in North County, San Diego. Is the North County Interfaith Community Center, I believe, is the title. I don't know if it's still there. It might be. I would assume so. It might not be. And my mother and my stepfather, out of their own pocket, rebuilt the kitchen and the pantry, and they named it after my grandmother. So it's called Julia's Pantry. And so my weekends, when I wasn't off playing in a punk rock band from 17 to 18 and a half, I spent frequently with my mother bagging sundry items for people in need. And a lot of the time I did not want to be there, but I just did it to appease my mother. I also did it as I had been thrown out of, or asked to leave public school. Um, and my stepfather, who I feel like I've mentioned more in this talk than any other podcast I've ever been in my life, my stepdad, uh, was like, "You're either going to military school or you're going to college prep. Pick one." And I was like, "I'll go with the college prep." And wise choice. And so I went to this college prep school, and I'd like to think that I'm not an idiot. And so I was flunking out of public school mostly because I was getting what we would call bullied, harassed, picked on mercilessly by guys. Again, I'm keeping an eye on the clock. I haven't even talked about dogs
No,
yet.
no worries.
And by two factors, I was getting picked on by the jocks, and I was getting picked on by the punk rock, some of the punk rock kids, because I was a poser. And my favorite sidebar story is that the one guy who picked on me the most, his favorite band was Unwritten Law. The other guy who picked on me the most, Billy Dunbar, his favorite band was the US Bombs. He had a patch on his beanie every day. He walked by and he'd throw an apple at me and called me the F word. Rhymes with a French baguette, right? and and I remember that. And I remember years later in my 20s joining both those bands independently of all that and being like, I hope those guys hear about this. Anyhow, so all these things going on, dropped out of school, start going to this other school, way better for me. But part of the curriculum, whatever, was I had to do all this volunteer work. And so my mom wrangled me to this thing. I had a point 7 minutes later. So I started doing this volunteer work with my mother. I don't think I've ever even gone this detailed into this story,
Yeah,
but
no worries. Go ahead.
so my mother's since passed about 11 years ago. So it's nice to sort of reminisce about some of these things as well. But so I was doing that, and I'm an angry punk rock kid. Like, I don't want to fucking be here, but you're, these people coming in crying or living in their car, which I've experienced myself over the years, as most musicians worth their salt will tell you. And your bullshit pride gets put aside. Not pride, but like, it was no longer like, oh, I don't want to do this. It was like, wow, okay, we're really helping some people. And so there was this that was instilled in me at a younger age. And so as I got older and have continued even to today, to this actual day, every day I get a little bit more uh, uh, misanthropic. and I just want less and less and less and less to do with people in general. And I used to like sugarcoat it really well, and now I don't care. And now, when people were like, yeah, I tried to talk to you and you were like short and you walked away, and I was like, yeah, I have social anxiety and I don't know what to talk to 17 strangers in a row about. Sometimes, sorry. I guess that makes me a dick. I'm a dick. What do you want? So and that, again, that makes me turn inward more, and I'm just like, I would rather focus my energy on something positive, and having had people do horrible things to me in my life from all spectrums, whether it's people I've never met or people close to me, or all these things. It made me never want to really do much for anything as people wise, but I still wanted to do something. And so as I'm looking at this award for all the years doing Rock Against MS. Every year I do a drive for Toys for Tots, and raise money and toys and on my own fruition. I have like a Patreon that I focus a lot of time on. And so I do things with that are charitable, but they're not my favorite, is my point. My favorite thing is that I find the most rewarding 7 minutes later now, as I apologize going into this, is for me personally, it's more rewarding to do stuff with animals, domestic pets. If it's a squirrel rescue or a cat rescue, I'm eager to help as well. But I find myself gravitating more towards dogs, especially pit bulls and pit bull type dogs. The shelters in America are teeming with them because they're overbred and used for horrible things, and horrible people get a hold of them and do terrible things to them. And unfortunately, the vast majority of them don't want to fight or don't want to be somebody's, or whatever. I mean, I don't want to keep going too much.
Your dog in the back there looks like ready to fight.
Yeah, all three of these I have 3 pit bulls surrounding me right now. They're clearly right, but they all come from Rufus, the brown dog who's just out of frame right here. Was what we would call a bait dog. He came in covered in scars, and his teeth were filed off. Shit. This is where I was trying to not get emotional. And Mila came from a really high kill shelter in LA. Beautiful puppy, obviously spoiled her whole life, never really experienced anything other than probably being on the streets for a little bit. And then I have a foster here who has some disability in her legs. They're unsure if it's from abuse or neglect or malnourishment or a combination of, but came in to a local rescue, unable to walk. Now you'd never know there's something wrong with her, except she does a lot of bunny hopping. So I find myself drawn to these things more than like sex, drugs, and rock and roll, man. And so it's a little more rewarding. I would love to do more humanitarian type stuff, although obviously I find myself stretched pretty thin as is. But I just feel like it's so hard for me personally as an individual to do stuff for other people, knowing that most of those people would stab me in the back. Like if I go to Skid Row and bring somebody a bag of food, here's a true story for I've never told, and then they're going to try to rob me. I'm like, why would I want to do this ever again? What's my fucking incentive here? Versus I'm helping these dogs who have no voice, who aren't going to try to take my wallet, who aren't going to try to hurt somebody. It's the opposite. Somebody did that to a human, did that to them. So I try to utilize, I'm 10 minutes in now, sorry again, to utilize what little,
I don't have to be to work till 7 a.m.
I don't have anywhere to be. So if anyone's watching, listening, I'll give you 3 more minutes and then I'll let you shut me up, but because I'll go all day, especially with pit bulls, punk rock, or horror movies.
Well, we haven't even got into the horror movies yet.
Hey man, what do we start an hour ago? Let's do another 20 minutes and then we'll call it. How about that? But the pit bull thing, it's very, very dear to my heart. It's the most rewarding.
That's awesome.
aspect in my life. It's way
Yeah.
more rewarding than
No,
playing
I
dress
love to
up.
hear that. My son, he's 11 now, but he was when he was 10, he started this thing. He called it dog militia, and he would go on weekends and volunteer at the shelters and feed them and walk them, and he made
Did you
shirts and everything.
did you tell me about this in writing somewhere?
I don't think so.
I feel like did you post about that somewhere?
I may have.
Okay, because I swear I know this story about you, about your son. Keep going. I'm sorry
Maybe.
to interrupt.
No, no, that's it. So he was doing that for a while, and then we ended up, bringing some dogs to the house and fostering them. We couldn't keep them,
Yeah.
but we kept them until they found a home to go to.
Fostering is so rewarding.
Yeah.
I got a call today from the woman who runs this group here in town called Pity and Pink, which is where Rufus and Willow came from. Not Mila. Mila's in LA, an Angelino like I am, but and just you know expressing to me how in dire need of just even fosters. Just, can you take this dog for 2 weeks or a month, or in my case with Rufus, a year and a half late? I was like, yeah. I was like, it was the beginning of the not the beginning, it was sort of the tail end of the pandemic. It was early last year. I was like, I don't know where I'm going to be for the next 6 months, just bring me a dog. And then same thing with Willow. Like, I was like, well, I got to be gone for 5 days here and 2 days here, but otherwise I basically work from home.
Yeah.
So why not? I've got the space. I've got there's no
Hmm.
shortage of room. So
Yeah.
again, kind of going back, it's like I would rather be I wish I had 10 dogs here. And I wish I could do more for people, but I just feel as I turn more and more into an introvert in my old age,
Yeah.
that I find it more rewarding to help
Sure.
animals
Sure. What do
than
you do with them when
anybody
you
else.
when you're on tour?
What do I do with them?
Yeah, where they go?
So Mila and I have an accord where she stays at the house. Um, I've just learned over the 9 years I've had her that she understands that if I leave and she's here, that I'm coming back. If I take her somewhere else, if I board her, she stays at a friend, panic. I
Hmm.
mean, maybe for like 48 hours, she's
Yeah.
fine, but a week or longer and she stops eating, and it's this whole dramatic thing.
Yeah.
Uh, Rufus, I had an agreement with the woman at Pity and Pink here in town. I said, because I had fostered him for 6 or 8 months, and she said, it's time. You either need to try to find him a home. We need to find him a home, or you need to adopt him.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm happy to adopt him. I said, however, I am in a band 3 months out of the year. So what do we do? And so it was basically the agreement that we came to was she would take him into her boarding at her house and keep him when I travel, and he would be with me the rest of the time. And it's worked out great so far. Just because um, I know that he's indifferent to any situation. He's so old and been through God only knows what in his 10 plus years. He's just happy to be fed and snore on a couch. Um, and so, yeah, Mila is very, very specific with what she will allow.
Yeah.
So she's a little more needy, and rightfully so. She is my firstborn child and the most doted upon in the group. And then Willow is just a foster here, so she'll be here through the end of the month when I depart for the Kiss cruise,
Yeah.
and she may come back after, hopefully, I hope, and we'll see. So that's how I
Awesome,
juggle.
man. You're a good man. Good man, Ace.
I appreciate that. I
Yeah.
have my moments, I suppose, but
Well, we all do, but
yeah.
um, so real quick, horror
Sure.
movies. Now,
Oh
are
yeah.
you are very into the horror movies? Are you a collector of horror stuff? Besides, I mean, I see stuff behind you, but is your house full of horror stuff?
Uh, you could say that.
Yeah.
Yeah. As I look around, being like, yeah, no, it's full
Everywhere
of
you
horror
look.
stuff. I collect vintage original underscore
Yeah.
theatrical movie posters. So I have stuff going back to I think my earliest piece is early 50s.
Hmm.
I have this beautiful Creature Walks Among Us, Universal Pictures, uh, Creature from the Black Lagoon sequel, uh, theatrical poster. That's probably the apple of my eye. And then I think in the house framed, there's probably 35 pieces.
Oh, wow.
In my collection, not framed, is probably 100 plus easily. I acquire them and people send them to me or gift them to me, which is amazing.
Wow.
Not all people are mean to me. I just have
Not everyone's an ass.
traumatized by some.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I've collected quite an amount of those over the last maybe 8 or 9 years.
Yeah.
And then the records, that's kind of it. I stopped collecting the one sheets or the quads or the inserts or whatever, because I got more or less all my uh what's the term I always use, all my desired pieces, the things I really wanted.
Mhm.
And I ran out of wall space, so I was like, well, I guess we're done here.
Yeah.
So outside of being in a band or anything music related, I collect records and I do pitbull advocacy and I look at horror movie posters.
Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with
Yeah,
that. Hey, at least those posters don't take up a lot of space.
when they're no, you know what's
Yeah.
funny is all the excess ones are in one. They're either in a tube rolled, some of them are rolled, or they're flat in a cardboard slat that's like 2 inches wide. So that
I made the mistake of years ago collecting those damn Funko Pops.
yeah,
So, they're only this big, but when you get a couple hundred of them,
that's a lot. That's a wall.
they're in the attic.
I had to instill a shelf that's about 3 feet wide over. I have a guitar boat that's just to my right with all my guitars. So I
Mm.
sit here and record and whatnot. And because I had so many of them, and I was like, well, I really like a couple of these. I want to look at them, but I was like, I need people would give them to me. And so it's like, I need to stop getting these because I don't want to collect any. I don't no more. If it's not a punk rock record or an obscure horror movie poster, I cannot. No room at the inn.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Awesome. All right, man. Well, listen, I really appreciate you taking the time. I had a great time.
yeah, thank you for having me. Thanks for letting me have a little therapy there. And
Enjoyed it, bud.
yeah.
And the pumpkin went out behind you.
Oh yeah, the show, and it's like an hour long, so I just turn the TV off.
I figured that was our cue.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'll
All right.
talk about punk rock, talk about horror movies. I don't care. I'll give you
Yeah.
as much time as you want. It's your show. I'm just a guest.
Yeah. All right, buddy. Well, I appreciate
Thanks
it.
again. Yeah.